This gorgeous loft in Montreal used to be a Campbell soup factory, but thanks to a series of quiet, intelligent design decisions, it's been transformed into one of the most beautiful urban apartments I've seen in a long time. And today, I'm going to walk you through it room by room so you can see exactly why it works so well. And by the end, I guarantee you'll have a ton of ideas for how to take your own home to the next level too. So in my view, one of the smartest choices that were made here was swapping loose furniture for built-in pieces. Because then, instead of filling this beautiful open layout with separate pieces, everything the homeowners need is tucked into the walls and cabinetry. So this keeps the space open, clean, and really easy to move through because there's no clutter and no wasted corners. And so it's simple, but it instantly makes the place feel elevated and well thought out. Because at first glance, this looks like a plain wood wall, but it's actually a full workstation built into the structure of this home. And so the espresso setup, the sink, and the shelving are all recessed into the same oak cabinetry, so it feels like part of the architecture, not like something that was added later. But this same wall actually hides a second function, which is the powder room that's tucked right behind it. And so in my view, this is a really smart use of space because instead of adding extra square footage or separate doors, they just built it right into the same volume. And so you can only kind of catch a hint of it from this open doorway here, but the matching oak makes it feel like a quiet continuation of the main area. And then as we shift our perspective to be from one of the bedrooms, you can see the first of several bookshelves that fit precisely under these old brick arches. And so this really keeps the tone of the apartment consistent while also giving this corner its own purpose of storage, but also a display unit and a natural divider without adding any walls. And so it's super practical, but it also makes the layout feel well thought out from every angle. And then if we shift our perspective again, you can see this same unit from another angle through another one of these old brick archways. And I think this angle specifically shows just how effectively they've been able to mix old and new without any clash. So from the beams above to the floor below, every line stays perfectly aligned, which is a small detail, but it makes the whole home feel seamless. And that all brings me to a second smart move that was made here, which was knowing what not to change. Because instead of hiding the factory's old bones, the designers kept them visible and built everything new around them. So as you've already seen, the exposed beams, the brick arches, and these beautiful white walls keep everything honest, but then the modern kitchen and the oak details work quietly within the same frame. And so in some sense, it's just simple restraint, right? The space still feels new, but it also never forgets where it came from. And so from this zoomed out angle, you can see even better how the brick arches just set the tone for the whole space, right? Each one frames a slightly different view, and the woodwork behind them fits in perfectly. And the rough brick and smooth panels balance each other out without fighting for attention. But here's where the space really opens up, because the original timber beams still hold the ceiling, but they don't weigh it down because their warm tone stands out against all this white brick, and so they add character instead of clutter. And of course, I should have mentioned this before, but painting the brick white just brightened everything up because it lets the light bounce deeper into the room and it makes these ceilings feel higher. Plus, the lighting follows the same direction as the beams, so the modern fixtures just blend right in. So they've got that slim industrial look that suits the building's past, but they also keep things super sharp. And then as we twist down the hallway, you get another shot of the old brick and the new wood meeting again. And the surfaces are totally different, but they balance each other out because one brings warmth while the other keeps things bright. But because nothing tries to dominate this space, the whole place feels easy and consistent as you move through it. Now, another one of the super clever details in this apartment is how it uses small changes in elevation instead of walls, because just a few inches up or down is what's defining each zone, but it doesn't break the openness of the space. And so these steps act like quiet markers that tell you where you are, and they guide your movement while still keeping the space fluid and connected. And so here, this raised living room shows just how a small change in elevation can completely shift the feel of the room, right? By lifting the sofa area onto a wooden platform, the designers gave it its own calm zone, which is a place to pause, to sit, and just to look out the windows at the city beyond. And so it separates itself from the dining and kitchen space below without needing any kind of partition. Plus, this step up also changes how light falls in this part of the room, which makes this spot feel a little bit brighter and a little bit more intimate at the same time. And then again here, this level change in the kitchen just marks a subtle indication that you're moving from the cooking zone below to the dining area above. Now, both of them using the exposed concrete definitely keeps the character of the building visible, but it also works as that simple cue to guide you how to move through the space. And so it's a small but functional detail that looks super clean, but also changes the psychology of the space. Now here, the green tile floor also meets the oak cabinetry in a super clean way. And it's clear that this little rise was an intentional part of the build, not something that they added on later. But what I love here is how the materials do so much of the work, because the tile signals a new area while the wood keeps it warm and connected. And so again, it's subtle, but it ties the whole layout together without breaking the flow. But then deeper inside the bathroom, we've got another elevation change. but also the tiles wrap from the floor up the wall, which gives the bathroom its own unique look while still staying in rhythm with the rest of the home. And now another thing that we absolutely need to talk about in this apartment is light, because the way the light moves through this space, both bouncing off of the white brick and also kind of sliding across that slick oak, it adds so much warmth that furniture alone just simply can't bring into this space. And I'm not talking about flooding every corner with brightness. I'm talking about balance, softness, and control that allows you to create different moods depending on where you are in the space. So here you can see how sunlight lands on the brick wall, and you can imagine how it casts some slow moving shadows throughout the day. It gives the walls a ton of texture and depth, almost like they're breathing with that light. And that natural shift keeps the space alive and dynamic without needing any extra color or decoration. Now, in my view, these glass blocks above the bookshelf are a quiet but brilliant move because they borrow light from the brighter areas and spread it into the inner rooms of the apartment without any glare. And so this is a really old school idea, but it's used in a subtle way because it softens the light, maintains privacy, and just helps the entire space feel open. Then in the kitchen, these pendant lights line up neatly between the beams, which creates a sense of rhythm and focus all throughout the room. And you can imagine in the evenings, their warm glow is bouncing off of the matte counters and the brushed steel, which gives an even, steady light throughout the space. And so it's bright enough for cooking, but it's still calm once evening sets in. And then even the small bathroom, which we saw tucked within that corner unit, also handles light really thoughtfully because the gentle bulbs just pair with daylight reflected back from the white brick. It creates this soft balanced glow throughout the day. And so the light bounces off of the oak and the mirror. It makes the room feel larger and more peaceful without any harsh shadows. But now I want to move to the bigger bathroom because you can see here how the entire big bathroom is designed around a single color, right? This soft green that runs across the floor, the walls, and the vanity is a pretty striking move. And it's what makes the space feel calm and connected because there's no hard contrast and no visual noise. And so even the marble backsplash blends right into that tone and adds a little bit of movement without taking away the stillness that this soft green provides. Now, inside the shower, the recessed shelf blends right into the wall because the color never changes. And so the built-in storage essentially disappears when everything shares the same tone like this, which makes the shower totally functional, but also look really effortless. Now, here at the sink, the marble adds just enough movement to break up that solid color, and its natural pattern creates a soft balance against the grid of the tile. Plus, the wall-mounted faucet and the sink in the same tone keep their profile slim, so the space still feels balanced without being overly disrupted by the hardware. But now we need to move back into the main rooms of this apartment and talk about the walls. So you can see here how this big, beautiful bookshelf doubles as both a wall and storage at the same time. So it divides the space, but still keeps it kind of open thanks to the glass blocks above that share light between both sides. And the shelves themselves hold a ton of books and other objects, but it doesn't feel bulky, so the wall still feels functional, but light at the same time. If we shift our perspective a little bit here, you can see that on the adjacent wall, there's a little bit of personality with these framed pieces of art and the bicycle sitting below. So the colors in the frames here stand out just enough to break the clean rhythm of the room. So the space still feels curated, but it doesn't feel staged. And that's an important reminder that design works best when it feels lived in. And then if we step into the kitchen looking outward, you can see how clearly the walls keep shaping how you interpret and move through this space, right? The paintings line up beautifully with the furniture and they guide your view deeper into the home. So what stands out to me about this apartment isn't any single feature, but instead how all the ideas layer together into something that feels effortless. And it really goes to show that smart design isn't about invention, it's about orchestration, about tuning space, material, and light until they all hum together in unison. And in a building originally designed for noise and production, what remains today is a deep sense of balance. A place where the industrial past and the quiet present don't compete with each other, they actually complete each other. So if you enjoyed this walkthrough video, I've left links to a few others in the description below, and I especially recommend checking out this one up here, where I look at a home with 0 windows, but tons of natural light and a few hidden secrets as well. I'll see you there.